Today on Commander Replay, we check out Ravnica Allegiance's The Haunt of the Hightower. How awesome is lifelink on a mono black commander? Find out next on Commander Replay. Hey guys, thank you to all my awesome Patreon supporters. We have a new Patreon supporter, Derek Warner. Derek, you are awesome. For the launch of Ravnica Allegiance, I'm doing something a little bit special. I'm allowing everyone, including non-Patreons, to vote on which commanders they want to see most from Ravnica Allegiance. As of the filming of this video, it seems that Tessa Karlov is in the lead, so if there's another commander that you want to see more, head over to my Patreon page and vote for the commanders that you want to see most. Welcome back everyone, playing The Haunt of Hightower today, new out of Ravnica Allegiance. Take a look at our opening hand. We've got 3 lands with a Cabal Stronghold. Cryptghast, Necro's cool, right? So we'll go ahead and keep this one. We'd like to catch 1 swamp off the top. If we do that, we can start Necroing and then finding our way into more lands. Take a look at what we're facing today. Ooh, 2 Locust God opponents. Gross. And a Selvala Explorer returned. At least, well, if nothing else, Selvala will help us draw cards. So that brings it to our turn 1. We draw into this Altar of Dementia. Not the land we were looking for, but we'll drop down the swamp, pass the turn. Ooh, turn 1 Soul Ring for the Selvala. Seems pretty good. Luckily, our deck does feature a lot of creature removal. We have 3 or 4 of the each player sacrifices a creature type of card. We have 4 to 5 board wipes, a couple other pieces of spot removal, just a lot of ways to interact with creatures in our deck. We are mono black, so plenty of removal in those colors. Ooh, a Hammer Mage. Yeah, Hammer Mage is going to be really good against all of our artifacts. There's the swamp we were looking for. I don't really want to run this Altar of Dementia down there into the Hammer Mage. I guess we just pass. I have used Hammer Mage a little bit in the past. I've also used Devout Witness, which is fairly similar. Hammer Mage hits all artifacts. Devout Witness hits a single artifact or enchantment. Certain decks can't win with a Hammer Mage out, like Breya, for example, is a deck that just can't do anything if Hammer Mage is in play. Now, it is slow in that it has to untap, and you got to pay a bunch of mana and then discard and do a bunch of stuff. Still, when the card you play says your opponent's deck just can't do anything, that's pretty good. There's another swamp for us, so making those lands. Play the swamp, drop down the Necro. We have a fan of the channel in the game. I'm just going to Necro for 1 right here. I don't think we need to go crazy just yet. And we'll pass like that. So, Denitha coming down for the Selvala, by the way. If I were the Locust God, I would absolutely use this Hammer Mage right here. With a Soul Ring and a Grim Monolith down, I mean, yeah. That is a recipe for blowing up the mana rocks. So we catch another swamp off of the Necropotence, so happy about that. As far as this deck is concerned, some interesting abilities with the Haunt of Hightower. Namely, Lifelink. There aren't too many black cards that have lifelink on them. Grizzlebrand is one of them. That card's banned. 4 mana Kalitas has lifelink on it, though I haven't played around with that one too much. I've messed around with it just a teeny bit. But I think this one's interesting because it has flying and lifelink, and has the ability to get really huge, which gives you a way to gain a lot of life back, which means you can offset a lot of the life loss that you do to yourself being mono black and drawing tons and tons of cards. Also, I was talking about this the other day. Opponent does activate that Hammer Mage, by the way, shoots the Grim Monolith, and gets the Soul Ring, so glad we did not play our Altar of Dementia right there. Hopefully we find some of our creature removals soon, and get rid of that Hammer Mage so we can start laying down our artifacts beyond that. After that, Jace Vryn's Prodigy coming down, and that's followed up by a Visions of Beyond. Anyway, the other thing, and I was talking about this in a game the other day, is that certain cards like Dread, for example, which I did include in this deck, also No Mercy, good cards, but they don't stop you from getting Alpha Strike, especially if it's like an Avenger of Zendikar type of situation, where now, because our life total should be able to stay high, those cards are going to become even more effective, which I really, really like. So I don't usually include both of them, but I did include No Mercy and Dread in this deck as cards that, it's kind of like pet cards that I've been wanting to use for a long time, just haven't really had the right home for them. So pretty excited to give those a go. Right, we skip our draw step for the turn because that is how Necropotence works. So it brings it back to our turn. We drop down the Cabal Stronghold, not netting any mana yet, but next turn it should. We'll lay down the Cryptghast, and gonna Necro for 3 right here. We get Ancient Tomb, Reanimate, Expedition Map. I actually don't think we have mana doublers already. We have mana doublers in hand and in play, so I don't think we need the Ancient Tomb. That is a lot of life loss. Also, Haunt of Hightower able to offset life loss from things like Ancient Tomb. I have played plenty of games of Commander in my life where I lose the game, but it's not really my opponents killing me, it's the fact that I tap Ancient Tomb for like 8 straight turns. and don't really gain any life back through the game. So, I mean, they basically tap me one time and I'm dead. That does happen quite often, so... yeah, having lifelink on your commander, pretty good thing to have, especially in mono black where there aren't tons and tons of ways to gain life back. There are a few very specific ones. Usually Exsanguinate is the big one, and depending on your deck, Whip of Erebos is another. But it's not like playing a white deck where there's just life gain on like everything. So yeah, even though this is a very similar mono black deck to a lot of other black decks, I think the ramifications of having lifelink on a creature that can also get huge changes the feel of how this mono black deck will play compared to other mono black decks. One thing we need to be careful of, if we use the Expedition map to go for Urborg and then play the Gauntlet of Power, all of our opponents will get doubled mana. That's a thing that I've had come up a number of times. Opponents discussing the finer points of Hammer Mage. Opponent's also discussing Viashino Heretic. Opponent's going to play Mind's Aglow. Each player may pay any amount of mana. Each player draws X cards where X is the total amount of mana paid this way. So we have no open mana, so we're not going to be able to pay anything into it, but it looks like opponent's going to go X2, and let's see if the other Locust God wants to pay into it. Like I said, opponent's also discussing a little bit of Viashino Heretic, a card that I found just a little bit slow for the early parts of the game. Like, if your goal is to stop early Soul Rings and Grim Monoliths and stuff like that, it tends to be just slower and more mana intense than I feel like I really want a card like that to be. So it's not something that I run a lot of. In the Boros world, I've kind of switched to the Wear Terror, Crush Contraband, Return to Dust style of play, and that just seems more well suited to what I want to be doing, because with Viashino, if you play it on turn 2, you're taking turn 2 and turn 3 to tap out just to blow up a mana rock, which means, you know, you're hurting one opponent and then the other two opponents are probably getting ahead of you, so I don't know. Now, later in the game, if you give it haste and you have a lot of open mana, I could certainly see it being very good. Also, if you're playing Aurelia, where Aurelia untaps it, could be interesting there. Maybe it's a card that I should take another look at some point. It's interesting how my opinion of cards will change over time, especially as my ability to build a deck has changed. Since I've learned to run a more proper amount of ramp in a lot of my decks, it really changes how certain cards perform. Oh no! Opponent's gonna Curse of the Swine on our Cryptghast and the Grand Abolisher, so those going down. And they get turned into 2/2 boars. Also, we drew 4 cards off of that Mind's Aglow, and we have a lot of cards in hand now. A lot of cool things that we can be doing. Will slow us down in terms of our mana ramp, though. Okay, so I think this turn is going to be Altar of the Brood. Opponent says, can I call that last play boring? You sure can. Okay, so Altar of the Brood is down. Let us play a swamp. It's going to trigger Altar of the Brood. Doesn't do a ton without Haunt of Hightower not being in play. Ooh, we get a Mystic Comp Dragonlord Dromoka. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. We may also reanimate that Dragonlord Dromoka. That seems super sweet. So then we're going to go for the Merciless Executioner. Clear out a lot of our opponent's stuff, namely this Baby Jace and this Hammer Mage. Both very, very scary. We will sacrifice... Yeah, let's sacrifice the boar. So Hammer Mage down and Baby Jace down. Feeling good about that Merciless Executioner. And with our last mana, let's reanimate on this Dragonlord Dromoka, because that seems super sweet. That is a good magic card. And then we'll Necro 1 time. Should we Necro again? Let's Necro 2 times. And pass turn. Draw Mesmeric Orb and Tectonic Edge. Mesmeric Orb will be ridiculous when our commander comes down. Honestly, I mean, I think we can live without the Lash Writhe. I don't know the Lash Writhe is super important to what we're doing in this deck. I don't want to get rid of the Tectonic Edge, but feel like I probably should. Yeah, I'm going to get rid of it. Since we are trying to get our swamp count up, we have Expedition Map, which means we can get Cabal Coffers soon. So our swamp count does matter. Here comes Selvala Explorer Returned. Denitha going to swing into the Locust God. Sure. By the way, while I was talking earlier, they did swing at the other Locust God one time. Brought them down to 38. So both Locust Gods at 38. Here comes a Brawl Chief of Compliance. So opponent likely playing a lot of counter spells. However, with Dragonlord Dromoka down, they ain't playing them during our turn. Oh, Wheel of Fortune, no! We're going to exile every card in our hand, and I really like the cards that we have in our hand. That is unfortunate. Also, I wish our commander was in play, because our commander would be massive if it was down while that Wheel of Fortune went off. That was all not great. And a Brainstorm for our opponent. Oh, that's a Mana Geyser for the Locust God. Yep, that's good. 13 red mana. Probably going to cast their commander at the very least. Yep, a Locust God into play. 8 red mana left over. A Mind's Eye. And a Chaos Wand. Alright, brings it back to our turn. No card draw because of the Necropotence. Drop down the Swamp. Triggers the Altar of the Brood. add some mana to our mana pool, play our commander. And now if anyone wants to do any sort of wheeling or anything like that, it will be very, very lethal on our opponents. So Haunt of Hightower comes in, and that triggers Altar of the Brood, which is going to put 3 +1/+1 counters on Haunt of the Hightower. So already up to a 6/6. And next turn we can play a land, drop down some other stuff. So, yeah, if opponents don't deal with Haunt of Hightower, it's going to get really big. Now, the one problem is that Locust God is going to have a lot of... really have, like, a lot of trample in this deck. However, we can use something like Mutilate. If we can grow our Haunt of Hightower big enough, we can use Mutilate to clear out all the blockers and get nasty that way. Let us activate the Necro before I forget. I'm going to go probably 3 times. So we're down to 25. We're going to go to combat. We're going to swing into the middle Locust God opponent because I don't like the spells that they've been playing. It makes me very, very nervous. So swing into them and get some life gain back on the Dragon Lord Dromoka. So they go down to 30. We draw a bunch of cards. Ooh, there's a Dark Deal. Oh, that's so good. Let us discard the Buried Rune since most of our cool artifacts got exiled in the last go-round, and we'll get rid of a swamp. Homeward Path, we'll have to be careful. Dragon Lord Dromoka would go back to its owner's control, but if for some reason any of our stuff gets stolen that we may need, it is handy to keep around. Mind's Eye is going to trigger one time. The opponent does not have any mana for it. Ooh, the Parlay ability does trigger the Locust God, so insect tokens incoming. Also triggers their Mind's Eye. Yeesh. We draw a Promise of Power. Actually, maybe helpful. We'll see. We'll see. See how things shape up. Ooh, Odric Lunarch Marshal. So that's going to spread First Strike, Vigilance, Lifelink across all of their creatures. Those are some pretty good abilities. See if opponent wants to do any attacking. Yep. Going to send Denitha into the middle Locust God opponent. So middle Locust God down to 30. Opponent's going to play an Is It Charm. They're just going to cycle it. So cycling, very good for Haunt of Hightower. The initial impression that I'm getting right now is that Haunt of Hightower is very good against blue-red decks, and probably blue decks in general that just kind of like play a lot of cycling spells, things like that. Even just like a Frantic Search puts a lot of power on the Haunt of Hightower. Now, one thing we have to be careful of, if opponent targets us with that Chaos Wand, reasonable chance that they hit a board wipe. There are many of them in the deck. Treasure Cruise for our opponent pumps up that Haunt of Hightower even more. And a Mana Crypt. Chrome Mox. Hedron Archive for our opponent, also a Mana Vault, so a lot of mana ramp for the middle Locust God opponent. And that's what I was kind of worried about. Based on the cards that they've been playing, it looks like they're playing a fairly high-powered deck, just that they kind of caught an awkward start. Also with their... Well, actually, the Mana Rock got blown up, so yeah, with the Mana Rock getting blown up, that slowed them down pretty significantly. I think had that not happened, they would have been off to the races. So I'm going to look to take them out of the game this turn if possible. So Locust God attacking the other Locust God. I'm on board for that. And they go down to 24. Ooh, a Spell Twine. Exile target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard and target instant or sorcery card from an opponent's graveyard. Copy those. Ooh, opponent's going to be taking some extra turns. That's scary. So one issue I'm seeing right now is that we're only going to be able to kill one opponent at a time, and that assumes that we actually untap again, which if opponent's playing extra turns, we may not. Oh, Austere Command. No. Austere Command's going to get us pretty good. Opponent's going to copy the Karn, take an extra turn. Austere Command, all enchantments, and creatures 3 or less. Interesting. So the Haunt of Hightower will survive. I'll trigger Necro a couple more times. That seems good. We do have Promise of Power in hand. Oh, Force of Will coming down. What's it targeting? Force of Will targets the extra turn. Nice. Oh, that's huge. That means we get to untap. The problem now is that there are 2 opponents that we need to kill. And, yeah. Triggers the Brawl. Brawl triggers the Haunt of the Hightower. Yeah, the Haunt of the Hightower seems to be pretty good against blue. Just want to cycle cards all day long. Have at it. We lose a bunch more things. Haunt of the Hightower up to 14/14. May not even need to play the Dark Deal. We'll see. Which would actually be a good thing. Mind's Eye is going to trigger one time. Let's see if opponent does have the mana for it, which would make one really annoying blocking insect. Because Necro's gone, we do get our draw step back, so that is nice. Let's drop the Swamp. It's going to trigger the Altar. Haunt of the Hightower, now a 17/17. We would need to play 2 permanents to get it to lethal commander size. So I guess we go ahead and do that. Play the Burnished Heart. Altar of the Brood will trigger. Play the Vampire Hex Mage. Altar of the Brood will trigger again. Luckily, opponents can't cast spells during our turn, so that is nice. We're going to pay 1, sacrifice the Burnished Heart, get some swamps. Haunt of the Hightower continues to... Oh, yeah, we could have just did that. Haunt of the Hightower, 29-29. Let's go to combat. Opponents cannot cast spells during our turn. Feel pretty good about where this is going. So, Dramoka into the Locust God, and Haunt of the Hightower into that middle Locust God that everyone's been focusing on. They have a lot of mana rocks in play. Only 2 cards left, but I still feel like they'll be able to do a lot. So opponent discards a card off of the Haunt of the Hightower. I thought that was a damage effect. That is actually just a declare attack effect, so that's pretty cool. Did not notice that. So they discard down to 1. And they take lethal commander damage, 30 commander damage, -7. Out of the game, that puts us up to 63. Nice. And so we're sitting on a damnation. Yeah, we're still set up pretty good. Pass the turn like that. We draw some stuff. We draw a swamp and a dread. We'll discard the swamp. We have 2 lands, so we're primed to keep making our land drops. Odric Lunarch Marshal going to swing into us. Sure. And opponent just discards the hand size, triggering the Haunt of the Hightower again. Man, I really like this card. They trigger a Zendikar Resurgent nonetheless. So it turns out cards go to the graveyards for a lot of different reasons in Commander, which means you don't have to do much. All you have to do is keep Haunt of the Hightower in play, and it's going to get huge. All right, let's see what the Locust God opponents got. They're the one that I'm most worried about at this point. They're going to Chaos Wand. Could be scary. There are a good number of board wipes in the deck. Hopefully they hit like an Ambitions cost. Well, Demonic Tutor is a card. They have 4 open mana. Ooh, could be Aetherize. Would be scary. Or 2 mana Cyclonic Rift. Also pretty scary. Actually, well, Aetherize won't work with Dragonlord Dramoka down, but any of the blue removal spells would be super annoying. Let's see what they go for. Opponent says he tutored for the wrong card. Excellent. That gives us a chance to take them out of the game, I think. Yep, gonna send the Locust God our way. Not gonna send the Locust God our way. Not gonna send... Thinking about sending an insect our way. Gonna send some insects our way. Sure. I'm actually guessing that the card they tutored for was Aetherize. I don't know if that's true or not. I asked them. He said close. Yep. So probably some sort of attacking matters blue card. I don't know what all the other ones are, but Mind's Eye is gonna trigger. Opponent pays for it. This is tricky. So if we mutilate, we lose Dragonlord Dramoka, which means that opponent can cast spells during our turn, which means that they could potentially kill Haunt of the Hightower. But if we don't, then they just chump block with tokens, and that's also annoying. Yeah, it says he forgot about Dragonlord, so with that being the case, then I don't really want to do the mutilate thing. What we should do is, I know what we're going to do. We're going to promise a power. So let's play a swamp. I should probably play, was it Rite of Consumption? Is that the Black Fling? That's probably a good card for this deck, honestly. I did not include that one, but now that I'm looking at it, seems like it would be pretty good right here. All right, so we got our swamp in. Let's use the Cabal Stronghold. For the Promise of Power, we've got 9 mana. Yeah, let's Entwine. Why not? So we'll have 6 mana left over, and basically just kind of looking for, like, some spot removal. There's not tons and tons of it in the deck, but, well, we hit a Plague Crafter. That's something. Mind's Eye triggers a bunch of times. Ooh, Cabal. Oh, man, we already played our land this turn. Actually, this might work out. So, opponents tapping up their mana on the Mind's Eye because they think that Dragonlord Dramoka is going to stay in play. Yeah, if they tap out, then we just play Mutilate and kill all their stuff. So, all right, this is working out pretty good. Didn't exactly draw it up this way, but I think it's going to work. Ooh, we do catch a Grim Tutor in there. Anything else to speed up the process of us taking down our opponents? We could go Grim Tutor Toxic Deluge, which will keep our Dragonlord Dramoka alive and keep many of our other things alive as well. I actually like that. I think that Dragonlord Dramoka can just shut down so much play from our opponents. Yeah, I like what that means. So let's go Grim Tutor. Puts it into the hand, right? Put it into your hand. Yep, just checking. I had cut Black Sun Zenith from the deck, but I'm thinking maybe it should go back in. Because even though it puts minus counters on it, so many things are going to the graveyard that it'll balance those out really quickly. So grab our Toxic Deluge, play that. We're going to go X4. Opponent saying GG. Nice. So Haunt of the Hightower, 34 plus counters on it. Currently at 33 because of the temporary minus effect. But yeah, let's get down to the swinging. Opponent's going to be forced to discard a card. Down opponent goes. One opponent remaining. They're in kind of a bad spot. We have many cards in hand, so discard the Swamp. Discard the... I don't think we need Dark Deal. Dread. It makes me sad. Discard the Dread. So sad. It'll shuffle back in, so we can always find it again, but that would require opponent to have a board wipe right here for the game to continue, or at least some kind of removal. Opponent says they have a Fumigate. Well, They are short on mana, so Hammer Mage really punishing our opponents at the start, getting rid of a Soul Ring and a Grim Monolith, and that just completely shut our opponents down. The Selvala opponent definitely kept a risky start. I think they missed their second land drop because of the Soul Ring, so make sure that if someone blows up your Soul Ring, that the hand that you're keeping is still reasonable. Sometimes people do play early interaction like that, and it will mess you up. So go on the big attack, Haunt of the Hightower will trigger, and I'm guessing that this is going to do it. Yeah, opponent can't cast spells during our turn, so Dragon Lord Dromoka, super sweet card, preventing all of that pesky instant speed interaction. And Haunt of the Hightower, now a 40-40, absolutely massive. Up to 126 life, good game. Down go our opponents. Yeah, this deck. Opponent showed their hand real quick, looked like they had a decent amount of removal, so just short on mana. Like I said, really punished by their Soul Ring going down. Don't be that guy or girl that gets punished for keeping a bad hand just because it has a Soul Ring in it. So there's some advice for you. But yeah, so Haunt of the Hightower. As we saw, cards go to the graveyard for a lot of different reasons, especially if there's blue, even if you're playing green, if there's fetch lands. We also aided our opponents in having cards go to the graveyard. We had Dark Deal. We didn't use it right there, but we could have if we needed to. Altar of the Brood. We saw Mesmeric Orb. It got wheeled away on us, unfortunately. But we do need to add in that Rite of Consumption. I'm noticing that card will be really, really good in this deck. What's take out? Who knows, but drop that in. Anything that underperformed, I don't know. Sadly, probably Dread. Dread is probably the card that underperformed. But Dark Deal wasn't great because we were ahead. And two Locust God opponents. Yeah, with two Locust God opponents, you really don't want to play Dark Deal. I think it will be better most of the time than what we saw right there where we really didn't want to play it. What are we taking out? Actually, you know what? Lash Writhe? Lash Writhe really didn't seem necessary in this deck, so I'm going to pull Lash Writhe out. There we go. So Rite of Consumption in. Another good one might be the who's the sacrifice? Draw a bunch of the Agent of Bolas. Is that the one? Disciple of Bolas. Disciple of Bolas is the one. So Disciple of Bolas in. We could draw most of our deck by the end of that game with the Disciple of Bolas. Not that we wanted to, because we obviously want our commander to stay in play and kill things. But if we needed to look at some additional cards, that is a great way to look at many, many cards. Make sure that Reliquary Tower is actually in this deck. Sometimes I forget it. Yep, looks like I forgot it. So let's get that in. Cut a swamp. Our mana curve is a little bit awkward. We have a lot of 6 drops and very few 5 drops. Part of me wants to cut the Sidisi because there's not like a particular synergy with Sidisi in this deck, but Sidisi just kind of good to have around. Also, things pretty awkward because we have a lot of 6 drops. Yeah, well, I guess we're cutting the Sidisi. We have plenty of tutors. We still have Vampiric, Demonic, Beseech the Queen, and Grim Tutor. Seems like plenty of tutoring. So, a couple quick changes to the deck right there, but like I said, I really like what having lifelink on a creature that can get huge means in mono black, because you can offset so much of the damage that you do to yourself. I don't know, I probably drew, 10 or 12 cards with Necropotence throughout the course of that game. We had the Dragon Lord Dromoka down, which got us some life back early, and then we started gaining the huge chunks of life with our commander. So, for this deck, I went with both Greed and Erebos. I don't usually run both in a lot of decks. They kind of do a lot of the same thing, but in a deck like this, if you get one big hit with Haunt of Hightower, you can just draw so many cards. So one card I actually forgot was All Is Dust. I was going to get that in here for the enchantment removal type of stuff, but I don't know. There's a lot of choices, like Enslave could probably come out. I don't know that we need. I like Enslave as a card. It's just fun, but not always the thing that you need. So bring in the All Is Dust. Still really awkward in the 5 mana slot right here. I'll have to figure some things out. Gonna have to tinker with it a bit more and kind of smooth that out. But if we're ramping the right way, we should hopefully be getting our commander on turn 5 anyway. But it doesn't always work out like that. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, feel free to comment, like, or subscribe. Thank you for watching. Just to let you guys know, I do have a Twitter page now. So feel free to check me out on Twitter @CommanderReplay.